joining us, Bills defensive coordinator. He's assistant head coach. He's been in the He's been coaching in the NFL since 1999. He won Super Bowl 20 with the Chicago Bears and those 85 Bears. He played corner for that team, I believe. Leslie Frazier joining us. Steve Tasker and Matty Glab here on One Bills Live. Thanks for joining us and taking some time out. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I got to ask you first. I mean, we were just talking about how when Maddie and I were young athletes, and even when I was a pro athlete, players, I looked to my coaches when things like what we're going through now, the pandemic, secondary to the social unrest and the protests, you always look to your coach. What do you think? What do you think about this? And what have your players come to you and asked you? I know they have. And I know you had some things to tell them. I mean, what's been your message, and how have those conversations gone?
Yeah, I just caught the tail end of what when Matty was finishing there a moment ago, and I totally agree that a lot of times, just like you, Steve, I would look to my coaches for some guidance, and that's kind of what we've tried to provide here as best we can for our players. I mean, they're searching a little bit for some answers, and Sean did a good job on Monday in addressing the team, and we had a situation today where we had a chance to talk with them from a defensive standpoint and just explain my point of view and try to give them some direction and give them a chance to voice their thoughts as well. And sometimes that helps, in particular because we've had a chance with our history to go through some of the things they're facing right now.
Yeah, we have this Twitter question we've put to our listeners today, and it's about what Sean McDermott said yesterday in his remarks to the media. And we were asking them what makes an effective leader. You and Sean trying to provide leadership for your players, and we have politicians we look to, we have coaches we look to, and mentors in our lives we look to. And let me ask you, you were on the 85 Bears. You had Mike Ditka and Jim McMahon and Refrigerator, all those guys. And I was going to Northwestern University there in Chicago. I remember those teams. But even now, what do you think in today's day and age has being a leader, what it meant and what it means? Has that changed all that much? And what do you see as being an effective leader?
Well, I don't think it's changed over time. I mean, an effective leader period, is someone who has influence. And, when we won a championship, even in Indianapolis with Tony Dungy as our head coach and Mike Ditka as my head coach with the Bears, those were both tremendous leaders, but, different styles of leadership. But they were people of tremendous influence. And that's what a leader is. You have the ability to influence people to sometimes do things that they sometimes think they can't do, or to influence them in a certain direction because they want to follow you. And that's what leadership is today, and that's what I've always seen it to be. Even in Little League, my Little League baseball coach, the ones that were leaders were the ones that I respected and wanted to follow, the ones in middle school or high school who were not people of integrity that I didn't respect. It was hard to follow because they couldn't influence me in a right way because I saw the inequities in their leadership and the lack of integrity. So, but that's what leadership is to me, a person of influence.
Coach, there's been some changes in the Rooney Rule. Do you think the NFL is doing the right thing in attempts to give black head coaches a fair shot in the NFL?
Well, I think, Matty, the Rooney Rule has been good for the NFL historically. Prior to the Rooney Rule, it was just so difficult for minorities to get an interview for coordinators' jobs and head coaching jobs. It was just very, very difficult for whatever reason. And then after the Rooney Rule, you saw the increase because of the mandate where guys were at least getting an opportunity to interview. Well, of course, over time, it seems it's gotten a little watered down where, people have gone through interviews, but they never really had a legitimate shot at the position. But I think there's a place for the Rooney Rule, just based on the history and what has occurred prior to the Rooney Rule and the tweaks they're making now. We'll see what happens. We'll see what type of effect it has. But the history says that it was necessary to have a Rooney Rule.
We're talking to Leslie Frazier, defensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. And this last offseason, you were promoted, right, to assistant head coach. I know that, for some casual fans, that's, what does it mean? Who cares? But it to me, it means Sean McDermott trusts you, and he has a place for you beyond being the defensive coordinator. He sees for you in a future as a head coach. What does that mean for you and your relationship with McDermott that he would promote you to assistant head coach at this point?
I think you're right on, Steve. I mean, it speaks to the trust that he has in me beyond what I do as our defensive coordinator. Even as we have navigated these waters to prepare for this offseason, which is uncharted territory, we've been in deep conversations all along, step by step, as to what's best for our team and how to put together these Zoom meetings and really organize it to the point where we get the most out of it. But it speaks to the trust that we have in one another, and also his willingness to listen to my input, along with some of our other coaches as well. But in particular, in our one-on-one conversations, just being able to trust my ability to communicate with him about some of the things we may be facing.
This virtual offseason that the entire NFL has had to go through, I mean, nobody imagined that this would happen here in 2020. How has the virtual offseason gone for you? What are some things that you come out of the offseason being proud of your defense because of?
Well, man, I just think our guys have done a terrific job throughout the process. We've been at it for quite a few weeks now, and, we've changed it up, we've mixed it up, and just tried to keep it from being mundane as we have gone through our normal installation that we would have been doing up at Orchard Park without the ability to be able to go on the field. But the response from our players has been tremendous. We feel like we're getting the most out of this situation, and it's become an opportunity for us to separate ourselves from the rest of the league, and that's how we're kind of looking at it. This is an opportunity to do it the right way, and our players are buying into that. They're spending time both with the staff, but when they're not on these Zoom calls, they're spending time away as well, staying in their playbook, being prepared for meetings, and taking it very, very serious, even in their workout. Posting their workouts, sending information in on what they're eating, just giving us a good feel that they are not just sitting around waiting on some news to change things. They are working as hard as they can to prepare for the 2020 season. So I think it's going well.
We're talking to Leslie Frazier, defensive coordinator and assistant head coach of the Buffalo Bills. One of the guys on your team, we spoke to Lorenzo Alexander yesterday. We had him on the show, and he talked about Tremayne Edmonds. And the more we talk about Tremayne Edmonds, the more amazed I am at the fact that he's still just 22 years old. And he's going into his third year in the National Football League, and he has come so far and so fast. And he's the type of guy, I think as a defensive coordinator, maybe I'm wrong, you tell me, he's exactly the kind of guy, the kind of person, the kind of character, the kind of leader, the kind of player, I mean, that you wish you had, 10 of. He is – I know you guys traded up to get him. But what if you're looking at him, obviously there's a ton of stuff he's got going for him. But was there an overriding characteristic that caused you to know how good Tremayne Edmonds was going to be for you and your team?
Well, Steve, when we were scouting Tremayne coming out of Virginia Tech and getting to know him, and you saw the athletic ability, you could see that on tape. You knew he was going to have a chance to be a really good football player athletically. And what you had to try to ascertain was, what is he going to be mentally? How important will football be for him? Is he a guy that loves the game, or is he a guy just getting by on God-given talent? Well, after we got to know Tremayne a little bit and saw his character and got to know his background, you knew that this guy, had the full package. It wasn't just pure athletic ability. He was going to come in and work as hard as he could to develop and grow as a player. And that's exactly what has happened for us. We've seen his maturation in this short period of time that we've had him. From his first year to his second year, his growth was monumental. And it was indicated by how much our defense grew as well, because he's really the straw in a lot of ways that stirs the drink for our defense. He is our leader without question. And as you mentioned, he's still so very young. But the guys respect him so much, Steve, and they look to him for guidance and leadership. And he's the type of guy you want to follow because he's going to put the time in, and he's going to do everything he can to help his teammates be successful. He's very unselfish in that way, but he's busting his tail every day to be the very best that he can be. And in that way, you gain your teammates' respect because of that. First, you're a talented guy, you're a good person, and you work as hard or harder than anybody on our team. And so when you get a guy like that, man, you have a special football player. And the sky's the limit for Tremayne. He's just going to get better and better.
There are plenty of off-season additions to this roster, and specifically on defense, it was the defensive line. Lots of new players on this defensive line. How excited are you to work with these guys, and how much better can this defensive line get with the new additions?
Yeah, no, we're really excited, Maddie. I think adding a guy like a Vernon Butler who was a former first-round pick, who has a chance to really develop and continue to grow. Mario Addison, been a double-digit sack guy. Still can get after the passer, being able to add some of the pieces that we have, even a guy like AJ who's coming in from New Orleans, but he was also a former Panther. I mean, AJ Klein, all the guys that we've added, they all have something that will be a plus for our defense, which should help us to improve as we go forward. And they're veteran guys along with our draft picks, but the veterans that we've added, I like that their leadership. I mean, Quentin, Mario, Vernon, all these guys have a chance to be leaders in our locker room as well, not just talented football players. And you need that, especially when you're going through the type of off-season that we're going through right now. You need people that are really grounded when we do get back, that understand what's important, because we're going to have to hit the ground running whenever we get back on the football field.
Leslie, we hope you do hit the ground running. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes of your time to be with us. Good luck today. I know you're going to run the gauntlet with all the media people like us, so keep your head up and stay energized, my friend. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.